Campfire Catholicism. I am your host, Elton Jarvis. Thank you again for listening to this podcast, this audio series where we continue to deconstruct and discuss Catholicism and stories. More specifically, in this series, we are focusing on the Lord of the Rings, venturing into Tolkienverse. I just would like to say again, thank you for all of those that are giving me positive feedback. I am glad that you guys are finding certain things that we can be reminded of. I guess you could say we are learning some things, but I do like to say that this is a gradual reminder again of who we are and whose we are. And so I'm really glad that this is affecting some of you guys that are listening. And so thank you so much for all of your feedback. It really pushes me to do more of these episodes. So, in this episode, we are going to be discussing the creation narrative and angelology. Okay, so what a topic that is going to be. I mean, we are no strangers to the ideas of angels and what they look like. I mean, they've been painted for over countless of centuries. I think a lot of that might have to do with the wonder and awe that surrounds angels and anything in regards to the supernatural, because it is outside of the nature of reality, and so it is up to speculation and wonder. Again, we get to feel like we are a child exploring a big world, which could just be our house. Anyways, the analogy that I used in the last Tolkien episode. Angels are often depicted as gargantuan humanoids with two large wings that resemble somewhat of like eagle wings, with flaming swords and booming voices. And so it's no wonder that when we read sacred scripture, that every individual, when in the presence of an angel, they basically fall flat on their face in holy fear, and the angel has to reassure them by saying, like, do not be afraid. In fact, it seems now that angels are starting to become more and more fashionable as time goes on, even though they are heavily secularized, such as them being depicted in TV shows like Supernatural or Lucifer. And then we also get them secularized in a plethora of video games, such as Castlevania, Devil May Cry, and, well, the list goes on from there. I'm even thinking of doing a video game lore series and finding what Catholic themes that we can pull from that. So if any of you guys have any video games that you would like me to deconstruct in the future, be sure to message me. And even in a lot of pre-modern cultures, there are many cultures and religions that believe in angels, or what they would call spirits, both benevolent and malevolent. Benevolent being good, and malevolent meaning evil. Now, in the Book of the Silmarillion, written by Tolkien, angels do make an appearance at the very start of the book. Now, what exactly is an angel? In today's episode, we're going to be talking about the nature of angels, and we'll pull from various sources and what they are. So let's get to it. What does the Catechism of the Catholic Church have to say about angels? Well, why don't we pull up the Catechism and we will see what they are right now. So paragraph 327. The profession of faith of the Fourth Lateran Council affirms that God from the beginning of time made at once, out of nothing, both orders of creatures, the spiritual and the corporeal. I guess I'm pronouncing that word properly. I have no idea. It is the morning here, so that is the angelic and the earthly, and then the human creature, who as it were shares in both orders, being composed of both spirit and body. It even further affirms the angels on paragraph 328, and we'll also read paragraph 329. And why not even read paragraph 330? So I'm going to read paragraph 328 right now. The existence of the spiritual, non-corporeal beings that Scripture usually calls angels is a truth of faith. The witness of Scripture is as clear as the unanimity of tradition. So who are the angels, and why do we call them angels? Paragraph 329, St. Augustine says, angel is the name of their office, not of their nature. If you seek the name of their nature, it is spirit. If you seek the name of their office, it is angel. From what they are, spirit. From what they do, angel. With their whole beings, the angels are servants and messengers of God, because they have always behold the face of my Father who is in heaven, and they are the mighty ones who do his word, hearkening to the voice of his word. Okay, so angel is just the name of their office, and their office is, you could put it like this in a way, is it's their job description. So they are a messenger of God, and they are servants of God. And again, they do that because they love him, and they wish to serve his will, at which, again, his will is that all human beings can get to heaven. Now, their nature is that of a spirit. Paragraph 330 continues on, talking about him, and it says this: as purely spiritual creatures, angels have intelligence and will. They are personal and immortal creatures, surpassing in perfection all visible creatures, as the splendor of their glory bears witness. And so, even in regards to when they were created, so when we come to know knowledge, or when we come to learn something, we see it as almost in an analytical sense, where we rationalize point A to point B to point C, where angels, they just see. Okay, they have an intuitive sense of knowledge where they just see, and they don't have to go through it allegorically, step 1, 2, or 3. They are, I guess you could say, I mean, they're not omniscient, but they're definitely a lot more knowing than what we are. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Tolkien did implement angelic figures in the world of Middle-earth. More specifically, he started writing about them in the book of the Silmarillion. And so I'm going to read a page in which they are starting to be mentioned. This is from the Valaquenta. Okay, so let's actually read what Tolkien writes about this. In the beginning, Eru, the One, who in the Elvish tongue is named Iluvatar, made the Ainur of his thought, and they made a great music before him. In this music the world was begun, for Iluvatar made visible the song of the Ainur, and they beheld it as a light in the darkness, and many among them became enamored of its beauty, and of its history which they saw beginning and unfolding as in a vision. Therefore Iluvatar gave to their vision being, and set it amid the void, and the secret fire was sent to burn at the heart of the world, and it was called Ea. Then those of the Ainur who desired it arose, and entered into the world at the beginning of time, and it was their task to achieve it, and by their labors to fulfill the vision for which they had seen. Long they labored in the regions of Ea, which are vast beyond the thoughts of elves and men, until in the time appointed was made Arda, the kingdom of earth. Then they put on the raiment of earth, and descended into it, and dwelt therein. And so the angelic spirits are called the Ainur. Okay? Eru Iluvatar, again, we learned about this the other day. Eru Iluvatar is the god character in Middle-earth, and that's where he's explicitly mentioned. We also have ranks of these angelic spirits in the Silmarillion, similar to how the angels of Christianity are also separated into choirs, 9 choirs of angels. In the Silmarillion, these two are only mentioned. So the Ainur that enter the material world are called the Valar. Okay? Now, the Valar are... I'll actually read about them. So this is what Tolkien has to say about the Valar, again in the Silmarillion. So the great among these spirits, again the spirits that descended into the earth, the elves named the Valar, the powers of Arda, and men have often called them gods. The lords of the Valar are 7, and the Valier, the queens of the Valar, are 7 also. And so we're getting some symbolism of 7. Now, in Tolkien's verse, you know, they are depicted. So you have the lords of the Valar are 7, and the Valier, the queens of the Valar are 7 also. That really does specify sort of a masculine and a feminine. And in regards to what we believe, I guess, as Catholics as well, we know that angels are spirits, and so they are genderless. Now, in regards to if they share more masculine qualities or feminine qualities, I guess we could even deconstruct that further and think about that. But, masculinity and femininity are not just, they're not they're not biological constructs per se. I mean, there is a part of that, but masculine and femininity are also, it is that of the soul. Okay, they're an archetype, and we're going to learn about archetypes later. But it's quite interesting how there are 7 lords and then there are 7 like queens of the Valar. The names of the lords in the order are Manwe, Ulmo, Eol, Orom, Mandos, Lorien, and Tulkas. Really hoping I'm getting all these names right, by the way. And the names of the queens are Varda, Yavanna, Nienna, Este, Vire, Vana, and Nessa. I love how it's written in due order. The lords in due order are. It's because there is a natural order and a hierarchy to things. The universe and what God has created is not that of a democracy or where everybody is equal. No, that's not the case. I mean, we all each have priceless dignity in the eyes of God, but there is a natural hierarchy to things. And we even see it again in Christianity and Catholicism that, even the angels are in choirs. And so if there are choirs and ranks, I guess you could say, in the kingdom of heaven, then why can't there even be like a natural order here on earth? If the earth and the universe was created by God, which we do believe. Now, so the Valar are the Ainur, again, the angels that descend into the world. Okay, to work in it. Now, the lesser angels that do this, they are called the Mire. Now, the Mire, you're going to recognize a lot of these names. Some of the Mire actually become the wizards, also known as the Astari. You will know them as Gandalf, Saruman, Radagast, and the 2 blue wizards of the East. And what's really cool about the wizards, and I'm going to highlight Gandalf primarily, is that they act and carry out divine providence by shepherding and protecting the free people of Middle-earth. Again, the free people of Middle-earth consists of the elves, the men, the dwarves, and the hobbits. And we even see this in Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. And we can, again, look at it in the films. We see many scenes where Gandalf is acting as a shepherd to the hobbits, taking them under his wing. Or in scenes where he acts as an advisor for the Fellowship, and even other characters like Theoden of Rohan and Denethor of Gondor. We even see, I picture one scene, I believe, where, Theoden is recently healed and they have to make a decision on, I can't recall correctly, but Theoden is sitting in his chair and he's kind of face palming, and you see Gandalf, he's sitting right beside them advising him. I mean, it's such a good, well shot scene. What's really interesting, though, is the difference of the creation narrative with the Silmarillion and the Bible. I mean, we know that God created the universe as well as the angels and men and women, but in the Silmarillion, Eru Ilúvatar, the god character, he actually uses the angels, again, the Ainur, as instruments in creating the material world. Now, when Peter Kreeft writes about this, he calls it a theologumenon, which basically is translated to a theological opinion. So the Ainur, the angels in the Silmarillion, being instruments in creating the material world, could have been a theological opinion of Tolkien. And since it is a theological opinion, it's not heretical because Tolkien doesn't assert it as doctrine, and he doesn't really assert a lot of doctrine or dogma in his book. In the Silmarillion also, there are instances in which the Ainur can put on human bodies and show themselves that way, which is another one of Tolkien's theological opinions. Again, because we see Gandalf is also a body, he's physical, he's physically present, they can touch him, and I believe he also eats and drinks with them. And I mean, there are instances in Scripture where angels have implied this, such as the 3 angels eating Abraham's food in Genesis. Also, we hear about the Nephilim, also in Genesis. And then we have Tobias being guided by an angel in disguise, which is found in Tobit. So angels are prominent figures in Tolkien's world of Middle-earth. In fact, the first two parts of the Silmarillion they're the main protagonists, followed by the elves, and then followed by the hobbits in the Lord of the Rings. But that doesn't mean that their importance dwindled during the Lord of the Rings. As I mentioned before, the wizards such as Gandalf are some of the Mire, which are the lower angels. In fact, the main baddie of the Lord of the Rings is Sauron, who is also a Mire. That's right. Sauron is a fallen Mire. He's a fallen angel. Now, does that sound similar? The Balrogs are also fallen Mire as well, and we got to see a Balrog in the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring. And if you've watched the movie, you got to witness both Gandalf and the Balrog duke it out on the Bridge of Khazad-dûm in the Mines of Moria. Watching that scene really gave me vibes on imagining what it would have been like to witness the war in heaven. Both the dragon and his fallen angels, known to us as demons, versus Saint Michael and the good angels, which we read in the book of Revelation. And then if we are to further go into this, well, you have Gandalf, the guardian angel of the Fellowship, that is tasked to guide and shepherd the free people of Middle-earth to destroy the One Ring of Power, which was created by Sauron. Again, we can even compare Sauron to Satan. In fact, we're going to look at this deeper, but it's interesting as to how Gandalf takes on the form of the Grey at the start of the series. His character displayed in film is that of strength under control. You know Gandalf is powerful. I mean, he's a Mire, okay? So he is powerful, but yet he takes on the form of an older chap or older gentleman. It's in a way portraying the demeanor and character that he is. If you clean the inside of the cup, the outside of the cup will also be clean. He is humble in that he knows how strong he is, yet he knows the office and the task that he is called to, and that is to exalt and to shepherd the peoples of Middle-earth. Again, there's a sort of sense of obedience and loyalty and the nature of hierarchy here. However, Sauron, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. We know in the Silmarillion that Sauron is a shapeshifter, and he took many forms. Some of the forms that Sauron did take was that of a serpent, a vampire, and a great wolf. And this reminds me a lot of Count Dracula and Bram Stoker's Dracula, who could also transform into a bat, a wolf, a large dog, and a mist or a fog. Sauron's most notable form, however, was the form that was called Anatar, in which he, Sauron, took on the form of a fair elvish man, and with that form he deceived the free peoples of Middle-earth before he was revealed when he slipped on the One Ring of Power. His true form, though, was that of a slightly giant figure covered in heat and shadow. He looks more menacing in the movies than that he is. You know, you get to see how giant he is in the dark armor that he's wearing. But I do like the description of the book, because it involves a certain uncertainty to what he looks like. He's a slightly giant figure covered in heat and in shadow. And a lot of people have the fear of uncertainty, myself included. And so I want to talk about Sauron being a shape changer. And it makes sense that he can change his shape. I would like to think, and I guess we can contemplate this, but there is a deception involved with shape changing. And the nature of evil is to deceive the free people, which is us in this reality. It can also imply that evil can fall into what is relative. There are a numerous amount of saints that have commented on moral relativism, and to be relative is to agree with what is true for you. Oh, it's true that I should look like this? Well, I'll be a fair elvish man, or I guess in this situation I'll be a wolf, or I'll be a mist. So Sauron being a shape changer can kind of reveal truths about moral relativism, or just relativism in general. Lastly, on Sauron's appearance, here is what Tolkien had to say about him in one of his letters. In my story, Sauron represents as near an approach to the holy evil will as is possible. He had gone the way of all tyrants, beginning well, at least on the level that while desiring to order all things according to his own wisdom, he still at first considered the economic well-being of the other inhabitants of the earth. That could even translate to our free will. But he went further than human tyrants in pride and the lust for domination. Being in origin an immortal angelic spirit, Sauron desired to be a god king and was held to be this by his servants by a triple treachery. Number 1. Because of his admiration of strength, he had become a follower of Morgoth and fell with him down into the depths of evil, becoming his chief agent in Middle-earth. Number 2. When Morgoth was defeated by the Valar, finally he forsook his allegiance, but out of fear only. He did not present himself to the Valar or sue for pardon, and remained in Middle-earth. Number 3. When he found how greatly his knowledge was admired by all other rational creatures and how easy it was to influence them, his pride became boundless. And we can go on more about the character of Sauron and even the character of Morgoth because we haven't got to him, which later on we will. The next episode we're going to be talking about the nature of evil and the problem of suffering. But let's conclude this episode with the music of the Ainur in the Silmarillion and compare it to our Catholic faith to see what we can find. In the opening paragraphs of the Ainulindale, and I am not sure if I butchered the pronunciation of that word, so if there are any Tolkien buffs listening to this, I apologize for butchering even any of these names. Anyways, in the opening paragraphs, we read that Eru Ilúvatar, again, the god character, teaches all of the Ainur the art of music, which becomes their life and their work. And then shortly afterwards, we read that the Ainur have matured and the cultivation of heaven's music into the first theme. And I'm going to briefly read that because I think it's a beautiful piece of literature. So this is what it reads. It's very beautiful. There was Eru, the one who in Arda is called Ilúvatar, and he made the first Ainur, the holy ones, that were the offspring of his thought. And they were with him before aught else was made. And he spoke to them, propounding to them themes of music, and they sang before him, and he was glad. But for a long while they sang only each alone, or but few together, while the rest hearkened, for each comprehended only that part of the mind of Ilúvatar from which he came, and in the understanding of their brethren they grew, but slowly. Yet ever as they listened, they came to deeper understanding, and increased in unison and harmony. And it came to pass that Ilúvatar called together all the Ainur, and declared to them a mighty theme, unfolding to them things greater and more wonderful than he had yet revealed, and the glory of its beginning and the splendor of its end amazed the Ainur, so that they bowed before Ilúvatar, and were silent. Then Ilúvatar said to them, Of the theme that I have declared to you, I will now that ye make in harmony together a great music. And since I have kindled you with the flame imperishable, ye shall show forth your powers in adorning this theme, each with his own thoughts and devices, if he will. But I will sit and hearken, and be glad that through you great beauty has been wakened into song. Then the voices of the Ainur, like unto harps and flutes and pipes and trumpets and viols and organs, and like unto countless choirs singing with words, began to fashion the theme of Ilúvatar to a great music, and a sound arose of endless interchangeable melodies, woven into harmony, that passed beyond hearing into the depths and into the heights. Page turn. And the places of the dwelling of Ilúvatar were filled to overflowing, and the music and the echo of the music went out into the void, and it was not void. Never since have the Ainur made any music like to this music, though it has been said that a greater still shall be made before Iluvatar by the choirs of the Ainur and the children of Iluvatar after the end of days. The children of Iluvatar being the free people of Middle-earth, which, coincidentally, it can mean us. So heaven becomes filled with music, and as they are singing like a choir, they begin to also contemplate and comprehend each other's tunes, which are being guided by Eru Iluvatar, again the god character, which only increases their adornment not only in the other themes of the music, but also the adornment of the great music in which they are singing. It's amazing. I think this is so important to understand, because when we take note in how God is working in someone else's life, perhaps it is one of your best or good friends. Heck, it could even be somebody that you don't like. When we see God work in their life, we can only amplify just how great he really is. And so that's what we should be like. We should really look at our brother and our sister and see what God is doing in their life, because we can all be led to worship that way, which we see the angelic spirits and the Silmarillion in Tolkien's book. They are worshiping Eru Iluvatar. They are worshiping God. And after a time, Iluvatar appears to all of the Ainur and proposes a great plan / a theme. He charges them with the collective elaboration of the theme. And eventually their music begets, I guess the earth. But I do love what it says into the beginning, like how they sung into void, and it was not void. It's like, why is there something rather than nothing? One thing to note on this is that Eru Iluvatar, when he actually talks and he presents the great plan or theme in which they are to sing, they all have their free will to participate in this or not, just like we have free will to partake in a life with God or not. And we are called to participate because, well, we were made for God, and the Catechism of the Church says this. Now, the next episode, we are going to read a little bit more about the creation narrative, just a little tiny bit, because then we're going to transition into the problem of evil, the nature of evil, what it is, and again, even the problem of suffering and how God can bring about greater goods out of suffering. So thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. Continue to log on to this podcast either on Spotify or Apple Music to get more of these episodes. Please like and follow the Facebook page, Campfire Catholicism, and also follow the Instagram page at Campfire Catholicism as well. You've been listening to Campfire Catholicism. This has been a lot of Campfire Catholicism. My name is Elton Jarvis. Thank you guys for listening. Take care and have yourselves